Sure this is needed. There.
Yeah.
Hey, Lucy.
Hi, Lucy. Is that?
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, that's not near as good looking of a walking stick as you had.
I heard the other one. Did the other one broke? Is that's too? That's sad.
And the ice poking too hard.
It was a cool stick.
Dave, do you want to pass her the?
Scott needs to sign it too.
That's a good sheet.
No. Oh, thank you.
Hey, there's Pat.
How's the weather, Pat?
You don't want to know. I told you if I liked you, I wouldn't tell you what the weather was
No,
like
that's
where I
true.
was
You
at.
did. You did.
You don't look sunburnt.
Yeah. But it's pretty good. Say again.
I said,
Oh,
you don't look sunburnt.
no, 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 no.
Okay, maybe don't engage.
As much as they could if I get back out. Thanks. Did you hear that?
No, you were really broken.
Hey, buddy.
Is it me?
You can walk around. Yeah, sorry.
No, walk off.
I know. You're trying to move records up here to get them easier.
Keep you out of here.
Yeah, I know. I don't have to.
All right, we call the order, 6 o'clock, some purpose.
We have everyone here. So we do have some guests today. I haven't seen what's going on Zoom yet. This is a Scouts a Council workshop, so we won't be doing public comment, but if there's someone here in the gallery that you'd like to ask a question of, then that would be just fine. So, Brooke, all right, do we need any more preamble to that, or are we just gonna dive in?
I'd just dive right in.
All right.
Yep. Mhm.
All right. Hello, everyone. 1 second here. Let me make sure I get my screen shared up here.
Oh, sorry, let
Oh,
me
there you go. Yep.
fix that.
Thank you. I do think Chase will be online too, Liana. If
I'll keep an eye out.
okay,
There he
thank you.
goes.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Let's make this a little bigger for me. Okay. So hopefully you all are seeing this slideshow now. Here's Chase.
Yes,
Yes.
we are.
Perfect.
We are.
Okay, great. So thanks for having me back tonight. As a reminder, I'm Brooke Tasha with FCS Group, and we did present a very detailed review of the water and the sewer rates, as well as the SDCs last week. After that discussion and time to review those materials, we wanted to bring back the summary of each utility to remind you where the city is looking for guidance and to give you the opportunity to provide input and guidance and ask other questions that have come up since our last discussion. So just a quick agenda here. We'll review the summary of the sewer utility first, so since that utility has a couple more considerations to make. We'll follow that up with the water summary, followed by the updated system development charges for each utility. And so with that, we can go ahead and just review the sewer results here first. So as a reminder, from our overall revenue requirement perspective, we're looking at 10% annual rate increases in 2024 and 2025 for the sewer utility, followed by inflationary level increases thereafter. When discussing our cost of service, we saw that the commercial high and the very high classes were underpaying compared to their allocated share costs. We did provide an example phase-in strategy to start correcting for those imbalances. And here we're really looking for input on whether to start correcting for imbalances at this point or to apply the needed rate increases on a system-wide basis. And then finally here, we did provide a couple of rate design scenarios for consideration. Those scenarios looked at fully eliminating the 400 cubic foot allowance or partially eliminating the allowance. For the sewer utility, as a reminder, the rate design changes would affect non-residential customers as residential and multifamily are billed flat sewer rates. And ultimately here, we're looking for direction on whether a rate design change should be implemented or if across the board increases should be applied. We do have a number of the slides included here that we discussed last week and are certainly happy to pull any of those up as a reminder, but we wanted to first give you all a chance to ask any initial questions that have come up after you had a chance to digest the material further, and ultimately ask if there's any initial direction on the cost of service or the rate design components discussed for the sewer utility. So I can pause here to see if there's any initial questions or comments, or if we want to direct those to a particular slide from last week.
Pat's raising his hand.
Okay, just a quick question. If you could go to the slide, there was one graph. You had a couple graphs where you had all those bars. I don't have it in front of me because I'm turning off as many devices as that one there.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think I got a handle on that. And what was confusing to me to begin with is you see all those those things going up and down, all the different vertical lines, many vertical lines, right? Okay, so can you go over what those vertical lines represent? And I get the
Just froze, it looks like. Uh-oh.
the axis on the left, and those actually number of bills that are given in those. So each of those lines represents like X number of citizens, correct?
Correct. Yes. So there's what we're saying is there are 46% of bills. So there's a number of bills that fall within each of those impact range. range is.
So then if if I've learned that graph correctly, then let's say that we have, let's go over, just take one of them and then I'll be quiet because I think I'll have a handle on it. If we take one of them, let's say the line that goes up to 200, that first line on the left that goes up to $200. Okay, that means that person or those group of people, subset or whatever, are using very little cubic feet, but yet have a bill of $200.
So we actually have two axes going on. And so that's the important part to recognize. There's the left axis, which is representing the monthly bill. So that's going to represent the bill that corresponds to the black and the blue lines. When you look on the right side, you see the axis saying number of bills. And so that's the count of bills that fall within those usage ranges.
And this is
Okay.
also for sewer, and so this is only for commercial customers.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
I get that. So we have like four variables going on here with that one graph, I think,
Oh,
right?
yes. A lot of stuff. Absolutely.
Okay, so am I reading that right then? That means if we take one of those vertical lines clear over on the left, and somebody gets a $200 bill, then, and there's like, okay, so then there'd be about 20 of those people that get a $200 bill that then also are using very little water, very little cubic feet of water,
So-
like this is sewer combined, water and sewer.
So if we
Right.
wouldn't say that, so the lines don't necessarily
Is that-
correspond to the dollar
Right, am I
amount.
interpreting that, or getting that right, or am I missing anything?
Yeah, so if we follow, let's say we follow either the blue or the black solid lines
Mhm.
all the way to the right, that's where we start approaching that $200 per month bill. And if you follow that down to where you're seeing those green bars, you can see that there's very
Okay.
few bills in that range.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
So
with
we
ya.
see a lot
I
more
get it.
bills that are really in that 120 range.
Okay, so that has
Right.
nothing
Yeah,
to
you kind of
do-
have to look at them separately.
Okay, so those dollar amounts, so those dollar amounts on the left only refer to that black and blue line,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. That clarifies things for me. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
I had a comment. So I'm wondering about the numbers if we keep non-commercial rate increases to no more than 3.5%. How much would the commercial have to increase, and how much of the cost of service equity would that deal with?
I don't know that I mean, we would be looking, so you're saying here, right? Phase in, if we kept single family and multifamily at 3%, how large would our commercial need to increase? Was that the question?
Yes, and how much of the cost of service inequity would that address?
So that I don't know that we would reach a palatable increase for them to keep single family and multifamily at the 3%. And I might even lean on Chase if he has that up. I know he's smiling because I know
Well, and
he's
I can,
now.
I can also help with some of that too. Part of the reason is you only have 20 customers that are in the high and very high.
Yes. And so this helps too to look here to say, how much are we bringing in terms of revenue from those classes as well? And there's not a lot of room to increase those. Even if we did 50% increases to these customers, it's not necessarily going to decrease substantially our single family rates just because of the magnitude of the revenue that it brings in.
So the other question I had is like, the commercial user's bill versus a family's bill, how does that compare to as a percentage of the business's income? Because I don't pay sewer and water because I'm in subsidized housing, but if I did, it would be 20% of my income, the sewer and water charge combined. So like, what's the percentage that business is paying of their income?
Very difficult
here.
for us to know, unfortunately. And I'm
Yeah,
sure
we
it
don't-
varies quite a bit.
We don't have that data for their
Because that would be proprietary.
revenue.
So you're talking their gross,
Whatever is comparable to a
Revenue.
family's income.
right,
it's not public.
Mhm.
yeah.
Leona, what was the 1% that you were mentioning today?
So if you go to the slide for the cost of service, so if we do a phase-in scenario, we're only shaving off 0.1% for single family and multifamily
Right.
Rates.
Even
Because
by
of the
going
amount.
20% on.
Even, yeah, by going 20% on the high and very high users, we're not shaving off that much again, because those there aren't very many customers they don't pay, like as a percentage of the utility bill or the utility revenue, it's not significant.
So it's finding a balance between the businesses and having an economy here, providing jobs versus very minimal increase. That's what it sounds like on the single family.
Right, yeah, it's a
Comparison, right.
0.1% impact.
If we changed it from from the 10% to 20 on those 20 businesses or whatever, it would only change 0.1%, or we'd still have to.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So the
Yeah,
single.
that's what I'm reading that
yeah,
one right.
yeah.
I want to make sure it looks like I'm reading it right. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yep. And it is sometimes, I'll say this because we have this chart in front of us. It becomes easier to start to make cost of service adjustments when we get into more, inflationary level system-wide increases. A 7% on a 3.5 is a little more palatable than 20% on a 10.
Yeah, can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay, how I'm going to use this workshop, and everybody will use it differently. I'm going to use it to learn, because I feel funny about giving a lot of direction in a workshop, and maybe it's customary. So I'm just going to use it as a learning experience, and I will make comments as I see appropriate. But I'm going to say most of my direction for a public meeting when it's not a workshop, the next hearing where people can weigh in. And I'm not, so that people will do what they want. I don't know what's customary in Stevenson. I'm just used to workshops being kind of to learn the materials. So I'm not gonna, personally, I won't be given a lot of direction, and that is why. I'm just here to learn. Okay.
There are questions or potential
So
guidance?
is there anyone willing to give any sort of direction or consensus on a direction to go, so an ordinance can be drafted for the next meeting for further discussion?
Well, I can say that I would, of these three options, the only one that I would vote in favor of potentially is across the board. I would not vote for anything that impacts the lower end users more than the very high users.
I agree with that.
Can I ask a question? Are we going to be voting on anything today?
No, just asking for
Okay.
consensus and direction.
Okay, well, that seems to me to be voting. The reason I'm saying that is because aren't we going to have more meetings on this, potentially a third hearing? The reason why is because there's a lot of users here, and one of those graphs, there was a lot of users like Red Bluff and a lot of those places. And before I give a lot of direction, I'm going to want to talk to those people and a lot of my constituents. So that's why I'm just going to need that time. So that's why I'm not trying to be hard-nosed with my position. But when we give direction, that just seems to me like we're making decisions and we're deliberating. And I just don't believe that that should be the purpose of a workshop. But I won't say any more on that subject.
So is there any direction on the cost of service? And so the cost of service would be to make that 20% increase to the high and very high, or keeping it at just that across the board 10%, 10%, 3.5, 3.5, 3.
I think we should do the cost of service adjustment.
Okay.
Meaning 10% or 20%.
Whatever we work out.
To me, looking at, excuse me, looking at the 10%, 3.5, 3.5, 3 for commercial. In the 24, 25 categories, they're only a 0.1% higher than what single family residential and multifamily is. And to me, that doesn't seem equitable.
You mean just for that class though, right?
Mhm.
So you're wanting to see it in phases rather than or you're wanting to see it in,
So you just want commercial to all be
Levels.
the same and you don't want it to be depending on their usage?
Oh, no. I'm just using that as an example. It, low commercial is only 6%. But we know that they have more than a single family, but yet,
Are we assuming?
oh, yes.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, and I will say just as a reminder too, the preceding chart here kind of shows the cost of service results that led into that phase-in strategy. So based on the allocated cost, what we do see is that commercial low has actually been overpaying. And so that's what we're trying to correct for by increasing them below the system average. So at that 6%. And similarly here, we see medium, we would consider that on cost of service or within cost of service. So that's why here in this next slide, you see them at the system average at 10%.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the attendees up, so if he logs back in, I can
I,
promote him again. Oh, there he goes.
he's back.
yeah, I apologize. Bad interconnection where I'm at, so I'll probably be coming in and out. Apologize for that.
Okay. I don't know, for what I'm looking at I mean, I see the allocated costs, I see the disparity of what it costs for what they're paying and all of that, and we talked about that doesn't seem extremely equitable. But when you go to the next slide, like it really isn't, like we had it to double their, to go up 20% in the first each year for the first 2 years. I would like to talk to the business owners who are in that category. I mean, we know that we'd like to see more what it costs versus what we're charging would be more balanced, because right now where the the families are carrying more of the load. We'd like to see that more balanced, but we also have to take into consideration a lot of those families are working for the businesses that are in that category. So it would be something I would want to try and talk to some people about, where it was like, hey, yeah, let's sign it up and balance this completely out right now. I'd like to talk to some of those business owners in that very high and the high category and get a feel for where we are as well. I mean, obviously I've talked to a lot of people, families, about sewer rates, and they're not happy with paying more. And I'm not super pumped when I have to pay more because I pay sewer too. But I haven't sat down with a lot of the people on that list other than one. I've sat down with one of the business owners. And so I would like to take some time and talk to them before I was like, yeah, let's write a thing where we do that it only affects the single family person by 10% of 1%. So I don't know. it's a hard call for me to say, let's draft it. I know we have John right here, I guess.
Interview.
You are one.
I am one. I
So
have two
can I,
businesses.
you have two? Well, I'm
I
only
have
talking
I have the
about one.
laundromat and I have the grocery store.
Yeah, you got both of them.
The laundromat uses way more water.
Yeah, he has a,
Well, right, you use way more water. I think, and what we're talking about too is what is the sewer part, what goes down. And I don't know if that the concentration of what goes down in a laundromat is also higher than you think in a grocery store.
Yeah.
So I guess Mayor, can I ask our audience members some
Listen,
questions?
I'm working
Is that
on
okay?
encouraging public comment, but if you would like to interview or.
I would just like to
business
question, I
owner,
mean, you're
I'm
here.
Glad that
so,
he's here.
He's here.
I mean, I guess just,
Good.
oh, Pat, you have something to say?
Oh,
Sorry.
no, I'm just agreeing with Michael. I'd like to hear from, if it's okay, like from Mr. Mobley and others, because that's exactly my concern, and Michael said it very well. So I'm on the same page with this concern, and that's why I was reluctant to give input tonight. But so please go ahead.
Yeah.
Michael, with your line of questioning. I find it very helpful.
I just like to hear from you on, I mean, it's not that I don't want to make it hard for someone who I mean, I know that you employ a lot of people that I know here in town, so I would just like to.
And for clarification, this actually is for the A&J market. The laundromat is a medium BOD, so it would be at the 10% increase. The deli makes it high. BOD.
Because of the service deli, because of the
Yeah.
grease
The
trap
grease trap
and
and
the
stuff,
meat
yeah.
farm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So you're saying that let me understand this. So I'm at a medium for the laundromat?
Because it's
Easier to process.
more residential strength. Yeah, it's
But our sewer
It's
rates are much higher. Based on.
based on the size of your meter. You have a 2-inch meter for the laundromat.
Because of how much water's going through.
Yeah,
Okay, so it'd be a 10% on the laundromat.
10% on the laundromat, 20% on
20%
the,
of the groceries.
groceries.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's only on sewer or sewer consumption?
both. So it's sewer
So adding
and
both of those
your,
together.
yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I didn't figure that. I did the total. I mean, it's going to increase it. If you're gonna do it in, it looks like 2024 and 2025, is that correct?
Yeah,
And then 7, and then 7,
Yeah.
and then 6.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a lot. I'm a little concerned, where's this money going? Is it for the sewer treatment plant?
A lot of it, Brooke, do you have the slide with the,
Where it
Yeah.
shows you're at, or when we're
do.
done paying for all this.
Yeah, give me a second. It's going to take me a little bit to get there, but I definitely have it. Oh, here we go. And this is is that what you're looking for, Liana?
yeah. So this is where the money goes. That's the debt that we're trying to start paying off
Pay
in
off.
2025,
So right now, if you don't do anything, you're not gonna pay off the debt.
right?
Correct.
So and I'm sorry, this is not about sewer for me right now. Why don't you just raise the tax rate from 7.7 to 8
We can't.
and take that 0.3? Why not? It's just, that comes
Yeah,
back. to the
so
city.
but if we wanted to increase sales tax, that would have to be done through a vote of the people. Because we've already exceeded our sales tax, but the
was
service, this is related to the direct cost of service, like your
I get it.
sewer and sewer.
I
right?
get that,
Yes,
but
yes.
I'm saying if you need income, why don't you just increase it 0.3? I'm just saying.
Right, so,
I'm sorry, but that's
but
just
so
another issue. I know.
475,000 is what we need annually.
To
To
maintain
make
or pay
that payment, we would need
How
to,
many years?
that will be for 30 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Um,
Wow.
the property taxes are probably about 500,000-ish, I think, that we bring in.
That's what I meant, right? Because they just raised
Just
that.
1%, so it's 50,000.
Oh, it's like
um,
50,000.
right. Yeah. So, and I might be, but,
So going back to that other slide, the previous one, because it was at
This one here?
2020. Yes, that's
Okay.
it. So 2020, I'm sorry.
that's okay. You can speed up a little bit.
then it goes to 7, 7, and 6. So that's gonna level, my understanding is that's gonna level out and keep that $400,000, and I'm sure it's gonna keep going up after that. 3% probably, 2%.
Yeah,
That's
whatever the
normal.
inflationary.
That's
yes,
under, that's
yes,
understandable.
Yeah.
But 20 is over.
Right.
So,
So for the first 2 years, it's to get to
Right,
that
so
step.
there is a slide here, well, she had that shows that basically where we are to get to the income, where we are is paying the next 2 years, but we have to get to the point where our income is enough to cover that coming in 2026.
So
So if we don't raise it by 10% the next 2 year income level, but if we don't raise the next 2 years, then 2026, we would just have to basically, it would be a wild thing.
playing some catch up to get to the regular inflationary bump.
so
Right.
in the store, and not the laundromat, I'm not sure about the laundromat right now, but the store will be $80 more a month. It's actually not that bad.
For
But
20.
if we're just talking about sewer and sewer consumption.
Mhm.
Not water, not surcharge, none of that, right?
The sewer surcharge as well.
So there's
But
a
not for
sewer
water.
consumption and sewer, and there's a surcharge.
Yeah.
Would it be the surcharge too?
Yes.
Oh,
So the surcharge is the BOD.
so probably about, so over $100 a month.
Mhm.
And that's 10, I'm sorry, that's
That's 20%.
That's 20.
20%.
That's 20%. That's actually not that bad.
So it's
But
the math, 500 down, is that what you're
What's that?
saying? It's-
We're doing math.
Your bill is 500 down and it's.
No, it's 700, but you're not getting you're not getting the
Oh,
water,
it's not
bill,
applied.
right? Yeah,
Got
there's
it, got
something.
it, got it.
There's not water consumption, there's not water.
Right.
So
Right.
that won't be included.
Right.
I don't know what the other businesses do. I don't know where they're at. My bill on the store is obviously considerably less than the laundromat.
Right.
The laundromat's gonna be about the same, honestly, by the time you're all done, because it's 10%.
Which,
It's like $1,400 a month
gotcha.
for the laundromat.
So it might
Under
be.
your
lower.
usage.
It's a lot of quarters.
What's that?
Because of your
Yeah.
usage.
Yeah, right.
But that's just sewer.
But so
it's not
the-
sewer
so
and
the-
water.
So the sewer at 20% isn't going, that's not gonna put you out of, like, I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, that difference isn't gonna be like, oh my gosh.
And actually, that's not, I mean, I know people are gonna complain about it. But that's not out of the realm. Now, when you go another 20%. Now we're kind of going over the top of other stores, of comparable stores.
Gotcha.
And other businesses. So I think that could be it, when you keep going 20, 20, 7, 7, 6. Now that's quite a bit. For the following year. But 20%, I mean, right now, you're not. And I look at other stores, I know what their consumption is, we talk about things. You're not out of the realm right now. I mean, if you add 20%, that's not on sewer consumption and surcharge, that's not
Gotcha.
that bad.
Okay.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Just
that-
let you know.
that was for my own thing, because I mean, it matters to me whether or not a store is gonna be something that's gonna shake up.
But I know on
Operates.
the laundromat side,
Mhm.
we're actually paying more than most laundromats right now.
For the cost of water.
Yeah, water and sewer, because we're paying sewer and water, and we're not putting any solids down, obviously, right? Right. But I mean, we're putting some chemicals.
hope
in
not.
there. Yeah, so,
Right, it's just the process,
yeah.
which puts you in the middle, like you weren't, that's not a.
Yeah, I was under the impression that we're on commercial medium, is that right?
For the laundromat,
laundromat,
yeah, and
okay.
it's because it's more chemical.
Okay.
based.
So I'm not really, I'm a little concerned about the store because we're what they call high or very high, because we have a,
High, yeah.
yeah. So we have
It is the
a,
grease trap.
yeah, but it catches all the, I don't understand.
It's classified as a restaurant, in essence.
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
We don't even have, I mean.
It's the food preparation and the organics that end up going down, even though you have a grease trap, it still makes
Wow.
it through. And that has high biochemical oxygen demand, and that's what classifies that strength.
Huh. Even though I mean, obviously you gotta get a rate increase, but I mean, we clean it, it's done quite a bit. And I
Right.
gotta tell you, and I've had this conversation with some of the guys. I mean, we've never had to clean that line from the deli out to the street, ever.
Mhm.
That's how clean that line is.
And I don't think anybody's saying that you're.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you're the main.
But we're not
contributor
putting
to-
much solid, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I would let you know, but
Mhm.
we've never had to jet the line,
Mhm.
ever. Right. I've had to jet a meat department line, but it wasn't because of meat, it was because of something else. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay, go ahead, Lucy.
I had another, not for him, but,
Oh.
my question was about the 5-year phase-in scenario. Because if we did that, how much of the inequity and cost of service would that address? Maybe I missed it, but.
Yeah, and we didn't actually even show the percentage at the end, but it does not come close to closing the gap that we see here. So we don't, here we're showing the need for a 200% increase on high and 557% on very high. So it starts to make baby steps in that direction, but it does not come close to closing that gap.
Yeah, I was just wondering about how much of that gap, like versus the 200%, would it be like 100 or?
I don't even think it comes that far, to be honest.
So it's
We
less
can
than half
yeah,
of
and
the
we can follow
inequity.
up with the exact percentage too, but it really is a baby step in that direction, honestly.
Yeah, you're in.
So basically what's being proposed then is to get you to be able to cover your debt service. And then the cost of service component still needs to be addressed. It sounds like, is that what I'm understanding, or?
I think that is.
I think
yeah,
that's in there, isn't it?
That's, well, as you see from this chart, if you were gonna get into, addressing the disparity, that there would have to be a 200% increase. But this is kind of a weird graph, because as we've been talking about, it's a 0.1% on 20%. So this inequity that we're trying to address can have a negative effect on businesses. So they'll just say, this is not the town for us anymore, at all, or anymore. So do you want to have a brewery that you can go visit? Do you want to have a restaurant that you can go visit?
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. That's why I want to talk to the different the businesses. I'm not. We talked about that. This is not something that's going to be. We're not going to balance this out right now. We're not going to balance this out even in what we're talking about in a number of years. We're just wanting to know. I mean, I'm not trying to run businesses out of town because I like to go to businesses that are in town, and I was in HR in businesses in town that I hired people who live here and they still work there, and it's important to have those local jobs. So I want to have a positive thing there, but I also am not like Lucy's saying, low income families. It is hard when your water and sewer are always going up. I mean, it is a portion of your income that is bigger. It matters more when you're looking at scales when you're in certain spots, and so it does absolutely matter. This is a big issue. It's not just so I'm leery about saying, well, yeah, this is exactly how I want to do this right now. But that's why I want to talk to more businesses. I don't know.
What was the?
We're talking about 20 businesses as opposed to all the families, though.
Yeah, right.
Rent's not right. A lot of people can't afford to stay here, so then businesses can't find employees because
Right.
they can't live here.
No, absolutely. Well, again, absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know.
Can I ask a few questions before I lose my internet connection again?
Absolutely.
Hey, earlier we were talking, Leon talked about the size of Mr. Mobley's meter to his store. I'm curious if the size of the meters are always, I'm just curious if they're always, and I don't have information to say otherwise, if they're always appropriate to the volume, because I'm wondering, do we ever have an artificial situation where they're paying a high amount because their meter is too big? And maybe that's not a problem. I'm just curious if you come across that as being a problem in town. And I've not heard anything that it is. I'm just curious about that. And that's one question. I can wait till you answer it. And then I have a few more comments based on everything you said, and that could be helpful.
Typically, the meter is sized based on the usage. So if a laundromat uses a bunch of water, so they need a larger meter than the grocery store, because the grocery store in essence is similar to a restaurant, where they have bathrooms and food prep. So the volume of water needed isn't the same. And so they have a smaller meter size for that use. It's typically calculated upon construction. And if there's any additions or fixtures added, that goes into the calculation again to see if a meter needs to be upsized.
Okay, and if somebody thought they had a meter size that's too big, and I'm not saying they are, they could always Is there a mechanism? I mean, I guess they could always contest that. The other question.
Well, but that
Mr.
would
Mo-
involve replumbing the property, so.
Right, so I would think it'd behoove new business owners to make sure they're not getting oversized. I'm not claiming they are, but they'd have to
Right.
be pretty
It,
careful. to
it would
make sure
behoove them
they're-
up front to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then Mr. Mobley we talked about how or Liana, you did his store is classified as a restaurant. I'm curious as what percentage of his water and sewer usage is his whole store classified as a restaurant or just a percentage of the store? Because it's a pretty big building.
I think it's just okay, you can
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong.
it's
It's
just the meter.
It's the meter
Yeah,
itself.
and the type of usage, so,
For the whole store.
and,
Yes.
well,
For the
but
whole
what
store.
we,
One sewer.
right,
one
once
out.
you, and so what we've done with the beverage industry is, because not all of their sewage goes down the drain, we've done a calculation of the percentage that would go out the door in the form of product, and we've reduced their sewer bill based on that, because again, not all of the water consumed goes down the drain. But as far as the restaurants or the grocery store goes, we assume that all of the water that flows through the meter will go down the drain.
Okay.
I mean, a small portion might not, but it's not that.
Okay, and I just have two other questions based on everything you folks have been saying. And that is, I know Mr. Mobley has two of those businesses that are in the commercial high, very high. And there aren't very many others, right? It sounds like, and we saw a list in the thing. I'm curious how difficult, and if it is, just tell me, how difficult would it be in the very near future to go to those businesses and get a hypothetical bill? I mean, just take one of their bills for us to have a comparison. So we have apples, I mean, so we can see as a council, to take one of their bills, there's only a 10 or 12 or whatever, it's a small number, take their
So you're breaking up, Pat, but at the next meeting, I can provide sort of an average impact based on meter size and customer class.
So it looks like, so that the 5-year phase in is quick jumps over 2 years to get up to the point so that we can get just back to inflationary.
For everybody.
So we can make the
Right.
payment when it comes
To where
to,
we need to, and
Yeah.
that's gonna be like everybody else, it's gonna be a percentage increase just to account for.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
Pat, I can have some rate information to you at the next council meeting.
If you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Oh, I was gonna use, can't hear you, but it's gone. He'll come back. Last time he just showed back up in there. I think it's because you already promoted him and it's his
Hopefully.
thing, his position.
Just in case.
But that would be interesting to see what the actual impact is on these, because we see the list of 20, right? It's on the next slide. What the impact, right, well, La Casa, yeah, they
Well,
closed,
yeah.
but said absolutely perfect. But we could see what that actually entails and what that looks like. I think it would be helpful, because sometimes when we're looking at the big numbers of everything added together, we're like, whoa,
Well,
what's
so,
that mean?
yeah,
What's
yeah.
that? what does that
Percentage versus
really-
dollars.
Why
Yeah.
is Moon River high or very high?
They had the coffee shop.
I'm curious about Scoopies though. It's never open.
Well, when they don't use water, they don't pay the surcharge. But
Right, they close to the winter, then they.
Yeah,
back
They're
up.
open for like 1 month. Scoopies. Oh, yeah, the lodge.
no, because it's lodging, and it's,
Is it multifamily?
Yeah. well, it's transient. is what
Transient,
it's
yeah.
classified as. It has the restaurants. It's a weird mix. So
That's interesting, though.
Yeah.
They're not in there.
there,
with
so
the
but part of the reason is when we did the testing back in 2018, we tested their effluent as well as the effluent of the other significant industrial users,
Mhm.
and their effluent was less than residential strength. So
Okay,
they've
that's it.
gone through the testing, and so that
Gotcha.
is why.
Okay, I mean, that makes
Right.
sense. That's
Even with the restaurants.
Well, I was like,
Yeah.
they got 2 restaurants.
Right, but because of the volume of other water and other effluent that's going down there,
the percentage is
They're-
so low.
it still is residential strength when it comes out, and
And I bet
hits
you
the
with my
system.
laundromat, my grocery store is probably the same.
We could test.
I'm just saying, I mean, do you want to go down that road?
Right, and so there is a way to test out of the system.
Yeah.
And there's a process that's outlined within the ordinance if you wanted to test.
You don't
out
make
the
any money
program.
that way, yeah, I mean,
So-
but I'm just saying, you should have a standard. I'm sorry, I'm speaking, but if you have a standard, you should stay with the standard. I mean, they have 2 restaurants. They have lodging and they have bathrooms.
Part of the reason why they were tested, because they're a significant industrial user based on the flow that hits the plant.
Mhm.
And so it's a little bit different in that aspect, because they account for a large portion of the sewer that hits. the
So they
plant.
were, and then it was tested because of that. and then
Because of
what the
that.
test found was, oh, not only they're much lower than we would have thought, just off the top of my head, that they are.
The lodge makes sense to me, but the fact that these tiny coffee shops are being classified as high usage is.
The type
The
of
BOD?
stuff that, the
It's
BOD that
typically
comes
down
down
the
the drain, it's a bunch of milk.
Organic.
No, yeah, I guess I never thought of the coffee shops, yeah.
And that's what the bugs like. Yep.
So
Mhm.
that would be why Scoopy is on there too, because again, they're
Yep,
not.
yep.
it's just
Sorry,
the milk
lose my
product.
The
internet.
milk and then the fat and the milk,
Milk
I
and
mean,
fat
it's,
going down the- it's going down the
I
drain.
hear him.
What?
Mhm.
I heard Pat.
I heard Pat.
I don't see him, but I heard him,
It says Pat Rice right on her picture.
right?
Oh, boy.
I'm watching
on?
Oh, before I lose my internet again, can I just?
There
Well,
he
they're
is.
Hey, there you
better
are.
than mine, so we'll go with it. Hey, the other question I have before I lose my internet again, and I will get a tape of this, so I'm not gonna miss anything. And that is, for the low income people that Lucy was talking about, and I'm concerned about them too. One of the things we could do, however we do the rate increase, however we do these over time, is we could really push the low income program where I think we cut some of those bills down. Don't we have an actual program in existence where they only pay half of some of the charges, right? If they qualify based on their income, isn't that true? I mean, I could
Yeah,
be
we have
wrong on that.
a
That's why I'm
senior,
asking.
and so we have a senior disability discount, so, if you get qualified through going to the senior center, and they can connect people to other resources, but they're the ones that do the income qualification, to verify that they qualify for the discount, as well as
Well-
other discounts, not just for the city. And so that's,
But
it's
I
but it's
realize-
for senior citizens as well as those on, social security disability.
Okay, so that would be one option, although I realize it would increase the rates for everybody else, so then we have to calculate that. But it'd be good to know what those numbers were. I think the statistics probably would be available somewhere to where what percentage qualify for some sort of program. I mean, in other words, there's a way to balance this to take care of them, so we're not giving somebody a bill that's 20% of their income, but yet we're also not driving businesses that we all enjoy away. I mean, some of the high-end BOD users I'm talking about, that we're not driving them away necessarily either. So just wondering if there's a way to thread that needle. And I think that's what we're all trying to do.
Yes, absolutely, Pat. I think we're on the
Anyway,
same
that was
page.
my comment, to think about those. Yeah.
Yeah.
But think about that as an option, maybe if we extended that program, and I realize there's a cost to that, but just something to think about before we make a
Or
final
extending the
decision.
program to low income, just in general, if they can qualify for low income, without being on disability or
Yeah,
being a senior.
And we can see if there'd be other tiers as well. I'd have to see how we can implement the, income verification
Right,
process.
right. That would be.
Because I'm hesitant handling anyone's financial
Sure,
data
sure.
to validate that, which is why we use a system that's already established.
Right.
But, I'll have to reach out to others to see what they can do.
Maybe they could still do it at the Hegewald Center. if you just add different tiers.
Right, yeah. But taking seniors out of it. So if you're not a senior, I don't know that they would do it.
Oh, right, you know,
I
they
mean,
would.
you could ask
I
them.
will.
I mean, it's just, it does make sense. I mean, that, you know, we aren't trying
They're
to
already
impact
doing it,
people who are,
Right.
who are,
Well, to Lucy's point, WGAP, WARGAP,
Mm-hmm.
they run the food bank, they have energy assistance, they have
There are-
mechanism
Sure.
to say,
Right.
yes, you are right, you need
Mhm.
help.
Yeah.
Right.
And that
So there
can-
are
can be a
things
mechanism
in place.
Can be
Yeah.
taken, or utilized, I guess would be a better term. So, Leon, I'm telling you, we're looking at the kind of a sense on how we feel about this for the high strength users, but we still have to talk about water and STCs, right?
Yep.
All right, so we're 45 minutes in.
Mhm.
Do we need to drill down any further on, we're kind of feeling the 5-year?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
but with the understanding that we would like to have a little more information on what kind of impact that would
Right.
have.
Absolutely,
on us.
absolutely.
Because we were talking about the stores with very busy deli,
Mhm.
but let's talk about a brewery, even the Walking Man.
Sure.
And I would love to invite them to the next
Mhm.
public hearing.
Yeah, Walking Man and other, I mean,
Red
talk about
Bluff.
Walking Man, talk about Red Bluff, talk about
That
El
works.
Rio, talk about, you know,
LDB.
all those places. LDB, yeah, like what does this really look
Well,
like?
okay, so now LDB and Backwoods as well are considered industrial, right? Aren't they?
They're very high.
They're very high, right? LDB, Stone Brothers are
Their
they,
bills would go up about $400 each.
which is a
Yeah,
significant, I mean, that's,
but
yeah,
it could be significant if you did, one of the options was based on their BOD, put out or whatever. And it could be I mean, some of those costs, and maybe they were, maybe I'm getting confused with system development costs, but some of those costs, if you just looked at these graphs and thought, well, this is fair for some of those big BOD users, I mean, it could be a pretty big number to where, it's not tenable. So that's
Right.
Those guys are shipping their stuff out though, right? LDB?
well, so I can actually, LDB
they
now
are. They truck it
pre-treats,
out.
they truck it out. But they pre-treat what they're putting
Mm-hmm.
in. But
Right.
they also used to, they changed the process of how they clean stuff.
Mhm.
And don't just wash that down the drain either, like it was. So, and this has
Right.
been a
This
couple
happened
years.
last time.
This is years ago. This isn't just this year.
Right.
So there's what is going down the drain for them is better today than it was
In 2018.
in 2018. Absolutely.
Right.
So, which I know that multiple businesses have worked on that, but I was part of that process of the change there. So I know they've improved what is going down the drain 100%, or I mean, significantly. So
Yeah, and it shows from our influent.
we saw that
Yeah,
other
the
chart
graph
that
go
was
down. Yeah.
going down. So,
Okay,
Anyway,
so I think we all agreed that we need to talk to the businesses and we should move on.
and I'm also not as scared now about the 20% as I was
Yep.
after talking to
Not
one.
as scary.
Not as scared, but there's still more business to talk to, right?
What do you guys have?
So I have a question. So
Mhm.
we have senior services at Rock Creek.
Right.
They're not on there. Rock Creek Assisted Living is not on there. They have a full kitchen. The schools, elementary
It's
and the
not
high
in
school.
use all the time though.
What's that?
It's not in use all the time though.
The
You mean
schools,
like, oh, no, I was talking about Hegwold, Rock Creek.
3 times a week.
Oh, once.
The kitchens.
The kitchen,
Yeah.
3 times a week for seniors. So, I mean, why aren't they on there? I mean, they are, I know they're not a business, but
It's still a commercial.
they
kitchen.
are contributing to this issue.
So Rock Cove is, I'll have to look,
Mhm.
but I think they're
That's true.
medium.
Just back to a volume thing, like the lodge
Yeah, it's the combination of
percentage within the
what
volume.
goes down. Let's see. I'm pulling up the ordinance as far as what the classifications are. And yeah, so nursing home is classified as medium for BOD. School with cafeteria is classified as medium with BOD. Or BOD, right? So, and this is, it's typical types of typical users within this range of BOD. And that's sort of what we got when we were going through the process. I mean, if we also want to look at the strength categories and that stuff too, we can see about that as well.
But there's so few of them, is it gonna make a significant change?
Right, so between high and very high, there's 20. I don't know how many medium, and I don't know how many low there are.
Yeah, and I wasn't pushing for anything. I was just pointing out that that was one of the options, and I was curious. I mean, I wasn't saying we should go that route, just so you know.
Okay, so leaning towards an increase, sounds like 5 years for now, but with a desire for quite a bit more information on the effects.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that, Pat, do you have more questions on that? Because I think we're on the same page on what we want to know.
Yeah, no more questions.
Okay.
Should we move on to water?
Yes.
All right. So here, moving on to the water summary, our overall revenue requirement forecast shows the need for 7% annual rate increases through 2028. We didn't look at cost of service for water, but we did provide 2 of the similar rate design alternatives. The first alternative looked at eliminating the full 400 cubic foot allowance, with the second scenario looking at cutting that usage allowance in half to 200 cubic feet. For the water utility, the residential class does have a usage component, so they would be impacted from this change. And again, ultimately here, asking for input on whether the rate design change should be implemented, or if the increases should be applied across the board with no changes to the rate structure. We did show dollar impact comparisons last week, and I'm happy to bring those back up if it's helpful. At first, though, wanted to just open it up for questions or discussion here.
Right, I'm looking at the single family bills by usage chart that they have. And I'm just kind of
That one.
and then we looked at, across the board and removing it.
ATV.
Across the board. Yeah.
We all
It's not
have
as
those
long as it
acronyms.
sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, so scenario 1 is removing it altogether, and scenario 2 is removing 200 cubic feet.
Right.
So 200 cubic feet would remain in the base.
Mhm. Where was the one? There was a.
I'm definitely always in the lower end of that, so.
Right, I don't hit to where I paid the minimum.
Yeah,
I'm under the 400.
Same.
All I think all of 1 month last year I was in that. So for
But-
me,
this month, I'm not sure. That
Here's
was
the
tapped
part
out.
to remember is that if your 400 is this much money as the base rate, if you use an additional 400, it's more. It's
Right.
not the same.
right,
That block
yeah.
doesn't
Oh, but if you use
doesn't-
800, it
Don't talk
doesn't.
about that,
yeah.
yeah.
So that's the part you have to keep in mind. So yes, you're under 400 now, but are you at 300?
Right,
And if the base rate is 200, now you have the base rate of 200, but there's
Plus
that
you
extra
pay.
100 that's
Mhm.
not included anymore.
right.
Mhm.
And that's where hopefully this dollar change makes more sense.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The thing can I make a point? I'm real happy that we covered the sewer first this time, because I think that this is gonna be a lot, easier. I think this will come together. If we get the sewer fixed, I'm not so worried about this, because any of these scenarios look affordable compared to the sewer stuff. So I'm just hopeful that, I don't think we need to worry about making a decision tonight, because we could ruminate on it some more and think and sleep on it. And I think we'll come to a decision pretty quickly on this once we tackle the sewer stuff. So
We
I
can
realize.
control your water bill more too.
Yeah,
Stop using so
Yeah.
much,
so I just think this is gonna be a lot easier than the sewer stuff. So that's why I'm just emphasizing, I don't think we should be any rush on this, because this is gonna be the easier one to solve when we get down to brass tacks, on our next meeting.
Sure.
That's just my opinion.
You guys are fine with moving along
Yes.
and tackle the
please.
SDCs did seem to generate a little bit more conversation than water did.
Yep.
All right. So moving right on here, the final analytical element included updates to the city's system development charges. We looked at increasing the maximum SDC to $12,334 for a 3/4 inch meter. That is a $3,700 increase over the existing charge. We did also provide a residential scaling option that would allow for a 5/8 inch connection for the water utility at a reduced cost of $8,223 if that new connection has less than 25 fixture units. For sewer, we looked at updating the connection charge to a maximum of $8,910 for 1 ERU, splitting that up into a flow and BOD component to recognize those differences in contributions for those functions. This updated charge is an increase of about $2,740 over the existing charge. But we also did look at a scalable residential option for sewer that would allow for a reduced charge of $6,683 for a house less than 1,500 square feet. So again, for this final component, we're overall hoping to get direction on the total charge. So should the city increase these charges to the maximum calculated here, or a policy-based charge that might be lower than this. And I think we largely got consensus maybe the last time on wanting to establish that residential scaling option, but that's also a question as well.
I'm looking at that slide, and which is number 24 for this. And I think that is, for me, the scalable, but under 1,500 square feet, 1,500 to 25, being different, and then over 2,600 square feet, that makes sense to me on connections. My only question would be, new sewer connections. What's that? Like, are 90% of the houses going to fall in the middle, or that are in? What does that actually look like on new connections? If we're connecting all these over here eventually, are all those in the 11,000 range, or are there all those in the $8,900 range? Like the new, the places that all went on, the new constructions going in, are we looking at more one way or the other? Do we know that kind of answer?
So we contacted the county assessor's office and kind of asked them what the average size of the house was in the area, and it kind of hit within the tiers that we have.
Okay.
So and that's kind of how we came up with that line.
Gotcha.
So
The middle
that line is more or less our average.
the middle section.
Yeah. And so yeah, some are below and some are above.
A few are below,
Yeah.
a few would be above, and
Right,
most of them would
right.
be in that middle section.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
Okay.
So
That's what I was like. I mean, if everybody's putting in
Right.
something that's all in the high end,
no,
but
no.
if it really most of it's in between 1,500
Yeah.
and 2,600,
Yeah.
then that's going to be
What
Right.
chart are you looking at?
Can
page
you
20
go to the next?
Yep, absolutely. So
Slide number.
24.
I have the slide in
24.
front of me too.
is this what you're looking at?
No,
No,
24.
the one with the
Keep going.
Sorry,
Or
this,
maybe
this
that-
one.
There it
that
is.
one.
Yeah.
Well, but the house sizes.
It's house
what
sizes,
it's
yeah,
at.
last
Yeah. So,
So, help me out. The system development charge,
One-time fee.
one-time fee,
Mhm.
what does that pay for?
It pays for
That-
oh yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, Brooke.
Oh, I was just going to say it pays for your capacity to the system. So it's effectively representing all the existing infrastructure that's in the ground today, a proportionate share of that. So it kind of right sizes you or puts you on the same level playing field as an existing customer that's already been paying for that system
That's most
infrastructure.
to you, Dave.
So it includes both existing infrastructure and capacity enhancing future infrastructure, and a proportion of that for one new connecting customer. So that's what this charge represents. Only new customers will pay this, or if they're redeveloping and asking for more capacity in the system.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I need. My discussion, that's kind of that's where I'm at, unless through talking to people and talking, I come up with changing my mind, which is absolutely possible. But as of right now, that makes sense to me.
Well,
Based on fixtures, the one before we're doing the water SDC calculation, so it's the number of fixtures, and then that next slide would be the sewer SDC
Yeah,
based on house size.
Yeah, and so it addresses the inequity of someone building a small
Tiny house or a
home.
mansion.
And then, yeah, someone comes in with a much larger home
Right.
and doesn't pay anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It makes sense to me. The difference in that based on square footage and number of.
I'm not sure how it actually pencils out, but as a percentage of what you're paying to build the home,
Mhm.
it might be a similar percentage,
Sure.
but more fair.
Yeah.
So the other
Yeah.
part that I wanted to see if we could get a really good grip on the SDC parts is that we have had a business already that didn't proceed with an upgrade because of what the SDC charge would be. And then we were unclear on how that was being charged, how that was being calculated, and if it was fair. So resident or commercial SDCs, how do they match up to what we're charging now? Like, would that business would they feel better about that cost, or would it be more?
So if it were a restaurant, do you have that slide up, Brooke? Yeah,
yeah, it's another thing.
so I don't know what our current charge would be for a restaurant. It all depends on number of tables. So
Does that include, when you say number of tables, does that also include, outside seating? Like the big River Grill does at Walnut Park, and
so
that kind of thing?
there's no building permit or application for improvement for temporary usage like Walnut Park.
Uh-huh.
And it is something that we talked about as far as like outdoor seating that happens, like Walking Man spills over into the grass. Like, we don't have that accounted for in any of our processes.
Right.
And it's not just sewer. I mean, parking as well. I mean, when you do a building, you have to comply with our parking standards. But if you just want to spill over into the lawn, you don't, but you just doubled your space.
Right.
So that's something that we have identified as a gap, but haven't come up with a solution.
Help me out with, so far the bills have been determined by the size of the meter and what's going out of the building and what the load is on the wastewater plant. Yeah. Why should the SDCs be based on what's in the building? If they use more water and it's still, the size of the meter hasn't changed.
So in other
The
words.
water usage goes up, then their
Right.
water bill goes up.
Right.
Sure, if there's more sewer going out, they're still being charged based on their water bill. Why is the SDC charged based on a completely different metric?
Like, for example, it doesn't matter whether you got five tables or 40 tables, depending on what the flow is going out and how much water usage you've got.
The water bill goes up, the sewer
That's-
bill goes up.
Yeah,
And so that's what we're switching to. And I think when they created the structure for the SDC charges to begin with, it was, well, if you have, 4 tops, we assume your flow and your impact is going to be this. And so here's your SDC. And so, but we've taken it to a different level to where it's just how much usage do you think you're going to have? And how much of an impact on the system do you think you're going to have based on your type of usage and type of business? And we'll go with that. But you can, if you want to squeeze in more tables, have at it. But,
Yeah,
it's all about the volume of business. It's all this new calculation is based on usage.
The change that we're trying to implement here has a much better nexus with the cost incurred to build this capacity for the customers, as opposed to counts of tables or other elements.
Right, the
So
old
we're-
structure was based on
We're
that.
not doing tables.
We're not doing tables.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. I'll armor down.
Yeah. No.
Can I ask a question before I lose my internet again? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Susan Krug sent us all a court case today that I read, and I'm just curious, and I don't know if you folks had a chance to check your email, but I haven't had a chance to read it in depth, but I did do a little research, and it seemed like it dealt with SDC charges, if I'm not wrong, and it's a case that's going to the Supreme Court on a homeowner that had some charges he didn't like, and the Supreme Court has accepted the case. And the only reason I'd like us to review that and find out if it's applicable, so we don't do anything later, that if there's some major Supreme Court case that we're going to be hurting with, and so I just would want us to make sure that to really research that legal stuff, since the Supreme Court accepted it.
So Pat,
Anyway, I
that
just
dealt
wanted to
with,
alert you to that.
so Pat, that dealt with transportation impact fees, which the city does not charge. The
Okay, yeah,
system
like I said, I
development
haven't had it-
charges.
Okay,
The system development charges that we're talking about for water and sewer follow the nexus as far as dealing with the direct impact that the development will have on the system. And that's what the court case that she sent was, their argument is that it wasn't proportionate to his impact on the system. And so that's what the entire rate study is all about, is ensuring that the cost that we are charging is directly related to the impact that connection has on the system. So it does comply with that. Now, if that court case changes things, it may change the way that the state allows us to calculate like the costs that are included in the system development charge calculations. But we'll have to see about that. But again, that's for impact fees. For that case is directly for impact fees for transportation, which we don't charge.
okay, I'm just saying, make sure we're aware of that, and so that and anyway, because these are the biggest fees that someone would be faced with. So
Sure.
anyway.
And these are just examples, so.
Yeah.
We can't just say, oh, that restaurant that wanted to expand is gonna be looking at a $38,000 bill. So it's gonna
Right.
still come down to their estimated usage.
Right.
So we have to just.
We
say
will probably do a year evaluation after that as well.
Do we know of any current applicants that would be hit by these fees, to where we could do some calculations on what it would cost?
We
Yeah.
do. There was a business that was not happy with the estimate that the city gave them and did not build or did not proceed with a planned expansion. So we absolutely can do that, Matt.
Yeah, was that Red Bluff? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'd be really interested in looking at the data on that case and the file on that. If I could get a copy of all that, I'd really appreciate it, because I just would I would like to learn what happened there. That's all. I have not made any judgments about it, but I really would like to look at that entire file. So if you could send that to me, email it to me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and when there is like the whole idea, I think that we all have, is that we want to make this a good place to live and a good place for businesses to be able to happen. So if somebody made the choice,
It's circular.
right, if business made the choice to not do that,
Economy.
then I would like to see what
People will live here.
what was the drive on, I mean, obviously it's money, but is there something different that we should have done? Or maybe it's just not a risk a business is willing to take its time or whatever. So it is a question to ask, and that'd be one where, like I said, more businesses to speak to would be helpful. So
So again, these SDC charges for the non-residential is based on the applicant's estimation of use, as opposed to the metric of retail having X amount of square footage and restaurants having X amount of square footage and tables. So it's just estimated usage. So, am I saying that right, or am I missing something?
Yeah, it's based on, usage as well as strength.
And concentration.
Okay,
Yeah,
but we're still counting on the applicant providing legitimate data.
right. And there's going to be like a component where we would validate that data after a year
And the ability to charge more if they.
and to adjust.
Yeah.
After a
Make
year.
adjustment after that.
Right.
Yes.
Or if they overestimate.
make adjustments after a year.
Gotcha.
You literally would give a rebate to someone or charge them more after the fact, as my understanding. That
If
correct?
they are,
I mean, they have to
Yeah,
pay
if-
these
if-
up front, don't they?
they do.
Okay.
If they are using more or have more BOD than what they initially projected for sewer, that's where, and that's the nuance that we would need to figure out, how to do that analysis, after the fact. So
Okay, so.
we might look to try to do, industry standards for BOD. And try to standardize it,
Based on
because again, they're
users.
not gonna have engineers.
Right.
And so that's why, tabletops makes it easy. It's like, well, how many tables are you gonna have? Like 5, okay, fine. But so we'll try to systemize it as best we can. But also have it in there to where if we do get a significant industrial user, like a brewery or some other industry, that they can calculate it, as well, and we don't have to.
Mhm.
Come up with that.
Okay, so it sounds like we're in sync on the residential SDC charges.
Right.
That sound fair?
Mhm,
And we'd like to know more, or at least examine a little deeper
mhm.
and bring in some eyewitnesses,
Yeah.
as it were, to take a closer look at the non-residential. Fair?
Mhm.
I mean, it's easy to talk to those guys.
Is there anything else we need to take care of? Phil?
And it sounds like, with your summation, it sounds like there's a little concern about the SDC charges and how it may have affected like Red Bluff and stuff. So a little more information, a little more
Right.
diving into that area.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I saw a laptop close. I'm just saying.
I got a little bit excited.
If I had one, I would close it.
Communities what they charge their similar.
Yeah, so there you go.
Oh, I
Yep.
see.
Yeah, I didn't want to skip over this. I know you all asked about this last week. So we did just bring a comparable slide up here from neighboring jurisdictions. I'll give my same apples to oranges caution with this. Of course, we don't know how well these utilities are taking care of their system. They all have different infrastructure and geographical needs. However, this is what it looks like when we're comparing to neighboring jurisdictions here. We still see Skamania above the updated 3/4 inch charge for Stevenson. But then you can also see that the 5/8 inch meter would actually provide a decreased option compared to what we're currently charging now. So that's what you're seeing there in those two gold bars.
What size is Vancouver?
What sizes are they in terms of population, or is
No,
that?
For $3,410.
I believe that's their 3/4 inch meter size.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
most of these should be all consistently 3/4 inch. You can see where we called out Battleground because they
Oh,
do
I
have
see.
separate
Okay.
charges. Yeah.
And also, I mean, some of that stuff, I mean, the amount of connections they have
Yeah.
in Vancouver.
It's
No,
totally
we're not,
apples
yeah, we're
and
not playing the
oranges.
same game,
Yes.
so.
100%.
I want to research Underwood on my own though, in my own time.
Underwood is, yeah,
Well,
the
they
numbers they
also will have to
just
be
wild.
paying for a new reservoir.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I mean,
Sure,
that makes
sure,
sense,
I get
yeah.
it.
And then
Right.
we also did the same thing here for the sewer SDC as well, showing in the 3 gold bars here, the 3 different options for the residential scaling. And then we see Battleground and North Bend, the non-ULID version here, kind of rounding out the top of the list. We would see both the mid-range and the high range in terms of house size kind of bump up over Clark, Washougal, and Camas. But then we do see that kind of smaller home size updated charge really not moving comparably here.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Not bad.
Yeah, like I said, I think
think I'm
it makes a lot of
so
sense
late.
to have the tier.
Yeah, so
Let's
that's.
check
Makes
it
a lot
out
of
up there.
Like 7 happen up there.
Okay. Is there anything else that we need to take care of tonight? I gotta rinse my
I don't
contacts so
believe
bad.
so.
Anything else? Meeting adjourned, 7:14.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. See
Thank you
Pat.
all.
Don't get sunburned.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you.